Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you the truth. Getting rich is not luck, it is not magic, it is not reserved for the chosen few. It is a result of rules, principles, and choices. Every wealthy person you see today is living proof that these rules work. The question is, will you follow them or will you keep waiting for a miracle? Rule number 15. Think different. The very first rule of getting rich is not about money at all. It is about mindset. The truth is, the difference between the rich and the poor begins in the way they think, the way they interpret the world, the way they respond to challenges and opportunities. You can take two people, place them in the exact same situation, and you will see two completely different outcomes. Why? Because one sees an obstacle while the other sees an opportunity. One sees a wall while the other sees a door. One complains about how unfair life is, while the other asks, how can I turn this situation in my favor? Wealth is never born in the bank. It is first born in the mind. Most people grow up being taught to think small, to think safe, to think like everyone else. They are told, study hard, get a good job, don't take risks, live within your means. And there is nothing wrong with stability, but stability has never built wealth. The majority are trained to settle, to believe that ordinary thinking will somehow lead to extraordinary results. But every rich person knows the opposite is true. You cannot think like the crowd and expect to rise above the crowd. You cannot follow the same patterns as everyone else and expect a different destiny. Wealth belongs to those who dare to think differently. Think about the stories of the people who built great fortunes. Before the money came, before the recognition came, before the world even noticed them, there was one thing they had in common: they refused to think like everyone else. When people told them something was impossible, they asked, why not? When people said, play it safe, they answered, safe does not change the world. While most people were looking for a job, they were looking for a vision. While most people were scared of failure, they were scared of never trying. This shift in thinking is the seed that grows into wealth. To think different means to train your mind to see what others ignore. Where most people see a problem, the rich see a possibility. Take, for example, the internet. When it first appeared, millions of people saw it as a distraction, a tool for entertainment, or a complicated technology they couldn't understand. But a small group of people saw it as the future of communication, business, and opportunity. They asked themselves, how can this connect people? How can this create value? How can I build something on this foundation? That difference in thought turned a handful of visionaries into billionaires, while the rest remained users, consumers, and spectators. Another aspect of thinking different is refusing to be trapped by fear. The majority of people make decisions based on fear. Fear of losing, fear of failing, fear of being judged. But fear-based thinking will always keep you small. Wealthy people learn to think beyond fear. They know failure is not the end, but a lesson, a stepping stone. They understand that rejection is not a punishment, but a redirection. They condition their mind to turn fear into fuel, while others let fear paralyze them. That mental difference creates a massive gap in results. And let's be honest, society doesn't reward different thinkers immediately. In fact, at first they are criticized, laughed at, doubted, and often rejected. But that is the cost of thinking different. You must be willing to believe in your vision before anyone else sees it. You must be strong enough to hold your ideas when the world says you are crazy. You must be brave enough to say, I see something no one else can see right now, and I will prove it with my actions. That is the way every rich person starts, alone, misunderstood, but unshaken in their mindset. Thinking different is not just about big ideas. It is also about how you view daily life. Poor thinking says, I can't afford it. Rich thinking asks, how can I afford it? Poor thinking says, this is too hard. Rich thinking says, what skills do I need to make this possible? Poor thinking blames the government, the economy, or luck. Rich thinking says, I am responsible for my choices, and my future depends on me. These small shifts in thought may look simple, but over time they compound into massive differences in results. Rule No. 2, take calculated risks. The second rule every wealthy person understands is that wealth never comes to those who play it safe forever. No matter how much you dream, no matter how much you plan, nothing changes until you take the leap. Rich people are not reckless gamblers, but they are not prisoners of comfort either. They take calculated risks. They step into the unknown, not blindly, but with courage, preparation, and vision. They know that if you want rewards that others will never have, you must be willing to take risks that others will never take. Most people live their lives avoiding risk at all costs. They say, I just want security. I want stability. I don't want to lose what little I have. But here is the truth: avoiding risk is the biggest risk of all. When you avoid risk, you avoid growth. When you avoid risk, you avoid opportunity. And when you avoid risk, you guarantee that your life will never move beyond the limits of what you already know. Playing safe keeps you comfortable, but comfort has never built wealth. Comfort builds ordinary lives, but risk builds extraordinary futures. Think about the decisions that shaped history. Every great business, every breakthrough invention, every iconic leader, behind them was a moment of risk. Someone stood at a crossroad and said, I am going to try, even if I might fail. The airplane was a risk. Electricity was a risk. Starting companies like Amazon, Apple, or Tesla was a risk. If those individuals had chosen comfort, the world would look very different today. And that is the lesson: everything you admire, everything you depend on, everything you dream of, exists because someone dared to take a risk when others hesitated. Now, the key is not to jump blindly, but to take calculated risks. Wealthy people study the situation. They prepare themselves, they build skills, they gather knowledge, and then they act boldly. It is like learning to swim. You don't dive into the deepest ocean without learning, but you also don't stand at the edge of the pool forever, waiting for courage. At some point, you must enter the water. And once you do, your confidence grows. That is exactly how wealthy people build empires. They take one step, learn from it, and then take another. Each risk opens the door to the next. But here is the challenge: society often glorifies safety and criticizes risk takers. If you try something new and fail, people laugh. If you step out of line, people question you. But those very same people will be the first to admire you when you succeed. That means you must be willing to face doubt and rejection on the road to wealth. You must be able to say, yes, I might fail, but I would rather fail trying than spend my life regretting that I never tried at all. That mindset separates those who remain average from those who rise to the top. Think about your own life. How many times have you stopped yourself because of fear? How many times have you thought, what if it doesn't work? Instead of asking, what if it does? Every time you let fear stop you, you build a prison around your potential. Every time you avoid risk, you lock away an opportunity that could have changed everything. Wealthy people feel the same fear, but they act despite it. They understand that failure is not the enemy. It is part of the process. Every failure teaches, every setback guides, every mistake sharpens your vision. In fact, many rich people will tell you that their failures taught them more than their successes ever did. And here is the truth: the first risk is always the hardest. Once you take that step and survive, you begin to realize that failure will not kill you, rejection will not destroy you, and mistakes will not end your story. Instead, you become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. That strength becomes your advantage, and over time, it separates you from the crowd. Because while the majority spend their lives protecting what little they have, you will be creating what others can only dream of. The third rule every rich person understands is that earning money is only the beginning. The real game is multiplying it. Most people are trapped in the cycle of working hard just to earn, and then spending almost everything they earn to survive. They live paycheck to paycheck, hoping for a raise, waiting for a promotion, or depending on overtime. But here is the truth: you cannot work your way to true wealth by earning alone. If your money only comes from your effort, then the moment you stop working, your income stops too. That is not wealth. That is survival. Wealth begins when you learn the art of multiplying what you earn. This is the difference between rich thinking and poor thinking. Poor thinking says, I worked for my money, now let me spend it. Rich thinking says, I worked for my money, now let me put it to work for me. Poor thinking sees money as a tool for consumption, while rich thinking sees money as a seed for multiplication. Imagine a farmer who eats all his seeds. No matter how good the harvest was, if he consumes it all, there will be nothing to plant for tomorrow. But the farmer who sets aside some seeds for the future will eventually have a harvest so large that he can feed himself, his family, and generations to come. This is exactly how wealth works. Learning to multiply is not about greed, it is about vision. It is about understanding that money can grow if you place it in the right environment. Wealthy people don't just earn salaries, they create systems. They invest in businesses, they build assets, they acquire properties, they develop multiple streams of income. Their mindset is always asking, how can this dollar create another dollar? How can this effort bring me returns even when I'm not working? And once they find the answer, they repeat it, expand it, and let it compound over time. Most people, however, fall into the trap of instant gratification. They earn money, and before the month ends, it is gone on things that bring no return. Clothes they don't need, gadgets that lose value the moment they're bought, entertainment that gives temporary pleasure but no long-term growth. This is why so many people stay stuck financially. They are great at earning and great at spending, but poor at multiplying. Meanwhile, the wealthy delay gratification. They resist the temptation of consuming everything today because they are focused on creating something bigger tomorrow. Think about the difference between buying a car and buying a business. The car looks good, it feels good, but the moment you drive it out of the dealership, its value drops. It takes money from your pocket every day in fuel, insurance, and maintenance. Now think of owning a small business, even something simple. At first it requires effort, but over time, that business brings money into your pocket. The car is an expense. The business is an asset. One takes money away from you, the other multiplies it. This is the thinking every wealthy person applies to every financial decision. Is this choice multiplying my money or draining it? But multiplying wealth is not just about financial investments. It is also about multiplying your skills, your knowledge, and your influence. Rich people invest in themselves because they know that what is inside of them will determine what is outside of them. A new skill can multiply your opportunities. Knowledge can multiply your earning potential. Expanding your network can multiply your chances of success. Every investment you make in yourself eventually comes back multiplied because you carry it wherever you go, and no one can take it away from you. The principle is simple: the poor earn to spend, while the rich earn to reinvest. If you want to build wealth, you must begin to see your income not just as something to survive on, but as fuel for multiplication. Even if you start small, even if it is just saving and investing a tiny portion, the habit of multiplication creates momentum. Over time, the snowball grows larger and larger until it becomes unstoppable. This is how fortunes are built. Not overnight, but step by step, reinvestment by reinvestment, multiplication by multiplication. The fourth rule that every wealthy person understands is that money alone will never make you rich. People will. Too many believe that building wealth is only about how much you earn, how much you save, or how much you invest. And while those things matter, the truth is no one becomes wealthy in isolation. The richest individuals on earth are not simply the smartest or the hardest working. They are the most connected. They have built networks of trust, partnerships, and relationships that multiply opportunities far beyond what they could achieve alone. Most people spend their lives chasing an income, but ignore the power of building connections. They think, as long as I work hard and earn enough, I'll succeed. But hard work without the right people around you only leads to exhaustion. Wealthy people know that your network is your net worth. Every introduction, every mentor, every partnership, every collaboration can open doors that you could never break open alone. Sometimes, one relationship can do more for your future than 5 years of working tirelessly on your own. Think about it this way: if you are one person, you have one brain, one set of skills, and 24 hours in a day. No matter how talented you are, you will always be limited by those boundaries. But if you surround yourself with 10 people, suddenly you have 10 brains, 10 skill sets, 10 sets of experiences, and 10 times the reach. Alone, you can run fast, but with the right people, you can go further than you ever imagined. That is why wealthy people don't just build incomes. They build teams, alliances, and communities. Building networks is not about using people. It is about creating value for people. The rich don't walk into a room asking, "What can I get from others?" Instead, they ask, "What can I help? How can I create value here?" Because they understand that relationships built on selfishness will never last. Real wealth grows when trust is established, when people know that you are not just chasing money, but building something meaningful together. That trust becomes a currency far more powerful than cash. But here's the mistake most people make: they only build networks when they need something. They look for help when they are desperate. They search for support when they are already failing. The wealthy, however, build networks before they need them. They invest in people early. They nurture relationships long before opportunities appear. And when the time comes, those networks stand with them, opening doors and creating possibilities that would never exist for someone who tried to walk the road alone. It's important to understand that wealth is never a solo achievement. Behind every successful entrepreneur, there are mentors who gave advice, investors who believed in them, partners who shared the vision, employees who carried the mission, and customers who trusted them. Behind every fortune, there is a web of people who contributed to the journey. This is why isolation is dangerous. When you try to do everything on your own, you cut yourself off from the very force that creates exponential growth. And building networks doesn't only mean connecting with powerful or wealthy individuals. It starts with valuing everyone around you. Friends, colleagues, teachers, teammates. The person you help today might be the one who opens a life-changing door for you tomorrow. The person you treat with respect today might be the one who recommends you for an opportunity years from now. Wealthy people never underestimate the power of small connections because they know every person carries the potential to shape their future. Think about how many opportunities in life came not from strangers but from someone you already knew. A job referral, a business idea, an introduction to the right person. It all came from your network. Now imagine if your network was 10 times bigger, stronger, and more diverse. Imagine how many more opportunities would flow your way. That is why wealthy people focus not just on adding zeros to their bank accounts, but on adding quality people to their lives. They know that money can be lost and rebuilt, but relationships built on trust can last a lifetime and create endless possibilities. The fifth rule every rich person knows is that wealth is not built on desire alone, it is built on discipline. Everyone wants to be rich. Everyone desires a better house, a better car, a better lifestyle. But desire is cheap because everyone has it. What separates those who achieve wealth from those who only dream about it is discipline. The daily habits, the repeated actions, the ability to keep going long after the excitement fades. Wealth is not a product of what you want, it is a product of what you are willing to consistently do. Day after day, year after year, most people live controlled by their desires. They desire comfort, so they sleep longer instead of working on their goals. They desire entertainment, so they spend hours watching shows, scrolling social media, or playing games while their opportunities pass by. They desire instant pleasure, so they spend money on things that satisfy today but weaken their future. And then they wonder why life doesn't change. The truth is, desire without discipline is a trap. It gives you dreams without results. Wealthy people refuse to live in that trap. They discipline themselves to delay gratification, to do what is hard now so that life becomes easier later. Discipline means waking up early when you don't feel like it, studying when you would rather relax, investing when you would rather spend, working on your vision when others are partying, and persisting when others have already given up. Discipline is the ability to say no to your emotions and yes to your purpose. It is the invisible force that builds empires brick by brick, while others are busy chasing shortcuts. And that is why discipline is more powerful than desire, because desire burns quickly. But discipline sustains the fire long enough to build something lasting. Think about the stories of people who built fortunes. Many of them did not start with money, connections, or advantages. What they had was discipline. They worked relentlessly when no one was watching. They saved and reinvested when others were wasting. They studied their craft, sharpened their skills, and built habits that compounded over time. While others lived for the weekend, they were building a future. And eventually, their discipline paid off so greatly that they now live the life others only dream about. But what looks like overnight success from the outside is actually years of consistent effort on the inside. One of the biggest differences between the poor and the wealthy is how they handle small daily choices. A poor mindset says, it's just one day, it won't matter. But wealthy people know that every day matters because every day is either moving you closer to your goals or further away. Missing one day of effort may feel small, but repeated over months and years, it creates a massive gap between those who are disciplined and those who are not. Wealth is not built by one big event, but by the small decisions repeated thousands of times until they become second nature. Discipline also means mastering your relationship with money. Desire wants you to spend as soon as money enters your hands. Discipline forces you to plan, to save, to invest, to think about tomorrow. Desire whispers, enjoy now, pay later. Discipline says, sacrifice now, enjoy forever. The wealthy choose discipline. They sacrifice temporary pleasures for long-term freedom. They resist the urge to show off and instead focus on building foundations. They understand that wealth is not measured by what you spend, but by what you keep and multiply. But perhaps the most powerful thing about discipline is that it does not depend on motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Sometimes you feel inspired, and sometimes you don't. Discipline means doing it regardless of how you feel. That is why the rich do not rely on emotions to guide their actions. They rely on systems, habits, and routines that keep them moving forward no matter what. They know that if they only act when they feel like it, they will never reach the top. True wealth is built when you keep showing up, even on the days when it is hard, even on the days when progress feels slow. So here is the truth. You now know the 5 rules that every rich person lives by. Think different, because wealth begins in the mind before it ever reaches your hands. Take calculated risks, because comfort will never create fortune. Learn to multiply, not just earn, because money must work for you if you want freedom. Build networks, not just incomes, because people are the true currency of opportunity. And above all, choose discipline over desire, because consistency builds the life that mere wishes never can. But knowing these rules is not enough. Knowledge without action is wasted. The world is full of people who know what to do, yet remain stuck because they never apply it. You cannot just listen, nod your head, and return to the same habits tomorrow. You must decide here and now to live by these rules, to embody them, to make them part of your daily choices. Do not wait for perfect timing, because there is no such thing. Do not wait for luck, because luck favors the bold. Do not wait for someone else to change your life, because no one is coming to save you. Wealth, success, freedom, they are built by those who take responsibility for their future and refuse to settle for less than they are capable of. Remember this, the poor wait for change. The average hope for change, but the rich create change. You have the power to do the same. The only question left is, will you stay where you are, or will you step into the life you were meant to build? The choice is in your hands, and the time to choose is now.